plans and our general development plan from 2009. And the stuff was getting built even that wasn't part of the plan. We were violating our own plans too often. And it was really frustrating to me. It was frustrating to a lot of people. And so here we are at the moment where we're doing a 20-year plan, and it's probably the most important thing that I'll be working on in my term or 2 terms as county executive. And I feel like the Office of Plan and Zoning has really put together a way to do this so that we do get back to small area planning. We're just calling them regional plans. We will do comprehensive rezoning, but we'll link it to those plans. So that's going to be happening after those plans. But most importantly, right now, when we do the general development plan, it's being done in a way that I think the staff really gets what the community's been saying all this time. So this is part way through the process. They'll talk about the timeline for all of that, but I think people know that even before I was elected under the last administration, they had their first round of meetings. I think it was 8 meetings, listening sessions about the GDP. And then when I came in, I said, we need more. We did 17, one in each of the small areas, plus we cut one of those small areas in half. And we did another round of meetings. We reconstituted the Citizens Advisory Committee. We did our own launch meeting where we talked about smart growth with Smart Growth America and some basic principles about how to preserve open space in the environment while still having economic growth and development in areas where we can have mixed use and transit-oriented development and things that actually get cars off the road and have less environmental impact. So I feel like we're on the right track. And what you're going to see here is they're going to drill down into actual proposals by landowners, sometimes land speculators, who would like to change the use of their land so that they can build or develop. And other changes that are really just to make it consistent with practice. These are not zoning classifications, but these are planning categories for the land. And you can comment on those directly through this map that you're about to see. And I know some of you have seen it. But I also think it's really neat the way they've come up with categories to divide the county into. They're also planning concepts that really resonate for me. So we've got between neighborhood preservation areas, rural and agricultural areas, and peninsulas that have their own challenges. That's a vast majority of the county that are in those areas. But we also have our corridor management areas, our critical economic centers, and our town centers, and where obviously a whole different kind of planning takes place because we want to do redevelopment. We want to do affordable housing in this county. A lot of the homes that have been built have been luxury homes and not enough for our kids as when they get older, or us when we get older, a variety of costs for housing. So that takes planning, and that takes policy. So that's all a part of this. But I don't want you to think that the general development plan is everything that the Office of Plan and Zoning is doing or that the county government is doing to try to manage growth and development in the county. There's a lot of legislation. Some of you have gotten into the forest conservation bill passed, strengthening our forest conservation rules by a lot, unanimously through the county council. And we've done legislation on workforce housing and fair housing. We've got another bill that I hope will be coming forward on housing, moderately priced dwelling units. We've got a Glen Burnie revitalization bill that I know will be coming to make it easier to do some redevelopment work that may be expanded into other parts of the county. We're looking really hard at our adequate public facilities laws, particularly on traffic and failed intersections, so that we don't develop where we already have traffic problems. We're looking at our impact fees. We're doing a study to change those to get them more reflective of the true long-term costs of development. We're doing green notices so that developers understand how we're doing, how we're making decisions, so it's consistent for developers. They need to know, they need the certainty that the rules are going to be applied consistently across the board to everybody, and that's how they can plan their work. And that's not always been the case in the past. There have been so many modifications granted to get around the rules that it was difficult for anybody to plan the future. So we've changed all of that. And some projects that probably would have gotten approved in the past aren't getting approved because we're applying the law consistently, or we've changed some of our laws. So I mean, I think some of you have heard about the enclave at Crofton and the Monticello properties at Saltworks Creek and the Marsh Landing and Glebe Heights, and there are a number of that have been very loud and controversial, and these aren't decisions the county executive makes by any means. These are things that the world is a little bit different now, that we're really applying our laws consistently and taking seriously the need to protect the open space and the environment that we have left. So I am really thrilled with the work that this team has done. The depth of the team too. We've had different planners in each of these three sessions. So now we're doing basically Annapolis and South County. They'll go through the regions that we're talking about. And I found every one of these to be a lot of fun. These aren't the public comment sessions. The actual public comment goes into this tool. I mean, you can say whatever you want in our 20 minutes if we have it by the time I talk for too long. But most of the questions that we're expecting you to ask are going to be how to use the tool and how to make this thing work so that you can get your specific comments in. I want to thank Councilwoman Jessica Hare, Councilwoman Lisa Rodvian for both being on the call and participating in all of this. They're going to be making the decisions on the general development plan, the council will. We also have Delegate Heather Bagnall, and then we have the chair of our Citizens Advisory Committee, Elizabeth Rosberg, also on this call. So I am going to, well, first I'm going to turn it over to Vincent Molden, who's our community engagement and constituent services representative for Annapolis and South County. We've organized that team by planning region because these regions seem to make so much sense. He's going to get us started. And then we have Holly Simmons, Cindy Carrier, Christina Pampa, and Mark Weidinger, who are going to be walking us through the process and answering any questions that we have. So Vincent?
Thank you, County Executive. Before I get started, just so everyone knows, we have closed captioning available for this meeting. So at the bottom of your screen, if you click the closed caption icon, you can see subtitles across your screen. As the County Executive mentioned, I'm Vincent Molden, and I'm the Community Engagement Officer for Annapolis and South County, or Regional Planning Areas 7, 8, and 9. Today's webinar will cover the General Development Plan, or the GDP, why it's important, and why it's also important for us to get engagement from all of our community members. There will be a tutorial on how to use the new interactive website to submit comments on the GDP. Once you're comfortable using this new tool and submitting comments, we encourage you to share this with all of your contacts. The more community input we receive, the better the draft will be, and the better the final product will be. At the end of this tutorial, there will be a Q&A session where participants will be able to ask any questions about the functionality of the interactive website and specific questions on how to use it. To participate, simply click the raise hand button at the bottom of your screen. I'll call your name and you'll be prompted to unmute, and you'll have 1 minute to ask your question. You're also able to ask questions throughout the presentation using the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. You can type in your question and we'll answer them throughout as we can. There will also be a few poll questions throughout this presentation to help keep you engaged and interactive, and we're starting off with the hardest one. That's going to be, what is your favorite ice cream flavor?
It's not fair that it says at the bottom, host and panelists cannot vote.
Sorry, Mr. Pittman.
Does that mean we don't get any ice cream at the end?
What would your vote be if you could?
Well, it's not on here. Rum raisin is usually my favorite, but I think I could eat any of these other ones right about now.
Awesome. So chocolate's number one, vanilla's not too far behind. What's our least? Strawberry? No, Rocky Road is the least. Okay.
Nobody wants peanut butter.
Oh, wait, you're right. Oh, God.
Nobody.
Peanut butter is my favorite. If I could vote, I would have did that.
Oh,
all right. All right, with that said, I'm going to hand it over to Planning and Zoning.
Great, thank you again, Vincent. So again, let me introduce myself. My name is Mark Wildonger. I've been a planner with the Long Range Planning Division of the Office of Planning and Zoning for 6 years. I came to the area from an environmental nonprofit organization in the Hudson Valley of New York, and I'm joined by my colleague Holly Simmons, who will introduce herself a little later in this presentation. So I do want to thank everyone for making the time to be involved as this plan comes together. We also appreciate the effort of citizens and the commitment of continuing to be involved. Now, this is a little different kind of a town hall meeting. Like folks have said, this is a tutorial where we're going to give a tour of the website that we've created to share the draft elements of Plan 2040, which is what we're calling, which is the title of our general development plan, or other folks might have heard it as our GDP. We've put this together to try to reach more of the public during these difficult times. The materials you'll see are based on a large amount of public outreach and input that has happened over the past 3 years. So we're up for another poll. So before we start talking about the plan and the online tool, we'd like to ask how many of you have been in previous meetings about Plan 2040? Okay, so 41% said that they have been part of some of these meetings, and 59%. So it seems like we're reaching a good group here. And again, I'll reiterate that we really do want you to get the word out. Tell your friends, tell your family to participate in this new online tool. It's an excellent tool, and it's really kind of a lot of fun to use. There's a bit of reading, but again, we need to provide that type of context to help guide you through the tool. So I'm going to go through the agenda just real quick again. So we'll provide you a background to Plan 2040, what it is, what it isn't, and why it's important. Discuss the subsequent region planning process to follow Plan 2040. And then Holly will walk you through the online tool to orient you to how to review and comment on the major elements drafted to date. We'll then end with some time to take some questions, but in the meantime, like Vincent said, if you do have some questions, please enter them into the question and answer feature. Plan 2040 is a complex document. There's a lot of information to share and review. We'll give you an overview of it tonight, then invite you to visit the website, and review the draft material and submit comments at your convenience. The interactive website, which we're calling Plan 2040 Community Engagement at Home, will be available for you to read and submit feedback on the draft plan until September 10th. Please, like I said, please also share this website. Can't get the word out enough. Share it with your community, your neighbors. It's critical that we get a lot of input as much as we can from the community. So let's get going with an overview of Plan 2040. So Plan 2040 is the latest update of the General Development Plan, the GDP. It's Anne Arundel County's plan to guide land use in the county, capitalize on its assets, and conserve critical resources. It's prepared in compliance with state requirements and guidelines and has input from numerous agencies and departments across the county. It's adopted by the County Council. Plan 2040 establishes policies and recommendations to guide land use decisions over a 20-year planning timeframe. So it's primarily a policy document and not regulatory in itself. In addition, all master plans and development regulations adopted by the county must be consistent with the goals, policies, and recommendations of Plan 2040. Plan 2040 is an opportunity for the community to share ideas on how to shape the development of Anne Arundel County for the next 20 years. The plan guides county policy on many important topics as identified by the public. And again, some of the things that we've heard about over these the numerous public input sessions is the environment and how important it is to preserve our natural resources. So the plan includes goals and policies, recommendations to protect forests, streams, wetlands, shorelines, and water quality, to name a few. It also addresses affordable housing. And in addition, the planned land use map informs where townhomes, apartments, duplexes, and other forms of housing are appropriate. We also heard a lot about traffic. That was a big concern. And the plan includes goals and policies to improve safety and provide more viable transportation options. And lastly, the land use is the centerpiece of this plan. So it outlines how the county will grow and protect natural resources. So let's see how it's organized then, Plan 2040. So this is the overall framework for Plan 2040. Most of this is available in the online tool in draft form for you to review. The vision and vision themes, these capture what citizens most value about the county and what they want it to become. The development policy areas provide a broad framework in the county for identifying areas that are appropriate for a certain range of land uses and public facilities. The planned land use map outlines anticipated land uses over the next 20 years, and again, is the core of Plan 2040. The goals, policies, and strategies in each of these four key areas: the natural environment, the built environment, healthy communities, which includes education, libraries, health, recreation, etc., and healthy economy. Plan 2040 will also include an implementation plan for moving us toward achieving the goals of Plan 2040 and also metrics to measure our progress. So with the tool Holly is going to walk you through, you can comment on the draft elements, on these draft elements of Plan 2040 from your home at your convenience. So Plan 2040 was developed through community engagement process that was far greater than any previous Anne Arundel County GDP. Plan 2040 was developed over the course of 2017 to 2020 and included a public education workshop to kick off the process, 8 listening sessions, 17 community visioning sessions, over 30 meetings with stakeholder groups. We had a variety of online surveys. We have our Plan 2040 webpage, an email listserv, and other digital outreach. Now we're also reaching out to our younger generation. About a year and a half, 2 years ago, we had a GDP land use youth conference at Arundel High School, attended by, I think, over 75 students who provided some input on how the county should be growing and where we need to be protecting our resources. The draft plan builds on more than 20 public meetings and online surveys Anne Arundel County has hosted over the last few years. Approximately 3,000 people have participated in these events to share their concerns and hopes for the county. Based on input from the public, the draft elements of Plan 2040 incorporate key considerations of, again, environmental protection, improved transportation and infrastructure, a focus on redevelopment and revitalization, and social equity. So looking at the region plan map, so after Plan 2040 is adopted, the county will begin a series of region plans. These plans will effectively update the small area plans that were prepared between 1998 and 2004. The purpose of these region plans is to identify and address key community level issues within each region. The format will look similar to Plan 2040 in that it will have a set of goals, policies, strategies, a planned land use map, and of course, an implementation plan. So 20 years ago, there were 16 small area plans. It was a demanding and resource-intensive effort. Working with the Plan 2040 Citizen Advisory Committee and through a series of community meetings, we have proposed 9 regions to allow more local and specific planning after Plan 2040 is adopted. So here on the map, tonight we're focusing on regions 7, 8, and 9. And as you can see, Region 7 includes the greater Annapolis area, Annapolis Neck and Riva. Region 8 includes Davidsonville, southern parts of Edgewater, Harwood, Owensville, Wason's Corner, Lothian, Owings, and Friendship. And lastly, Region 9, which is essentially the South County area, but more geared towards the waterfront, includes northern parts of Edgewater, the Mayo Peninsula, Galesville, West River, Shadyside, Churchton, Deal, Tracy's Landing, parts of Friendship, and North Beach. And again, as Vincent had mentioned, the Office of Community Engagement and Constituency Services has already adopted using these regions to organize their work geographically. So I mentioned the region plans will focus on more detailed planning for smaller areas of the county. A comprehensive assessment of zoning designations will also be conducted as part of each region. There will be opportunities to propose changes in zoning to properties in the region. Now our schedule is to update 3 regions at a time, and we anticipate that time frame for each plan would be between 18 and 36 months for each planning process. We will establish an advisory committee for each region plan that will reflect the diversity of the local communities and help conduct community engagement for each region. So with that, I know that was very brief, but like I said, a lot of this information is also within the tool that Holly will show you. So next we're going to show you how to use Plan2040 at home, how that website works. And this is going to cover many of those biggest pieces of Plan2040 and that are drafted. And it will provide multiple ways. Holly will show you how you can provide input to provide comment and how to use the survey and some of the mapping tools. It's a lot of information. I encourage you to spend time with this, walking through the information to understand how it's developed, what has been drafted, and the various ways to comment. And there are detailed documents linked within the website, again, that Holly will specifically point out as she walks through it. Take your time with it, visit the site, read through it, move at your own pace. We do recommend reading through all the material first, just so that you have the context to comment on the various items within the tool. So before we share the website, we're going to do another poll. And how many of you are familiar with SurveyMonkey? Okay, good. So that's like 90%. So folks should be well versed and well equipped to start commenting. So with that, Holly, I'll pass it over to you.
All right, thanks, Mark. So my name is Holly Simmons, and like Mark, I'm a planner with Arundel County's Long Range Planning Division. And today I'm going to be, as Mark said, giving you a brief tour of the website that we've put together to just present the major draft elements of Plan2040 and also to get your comments. And I have to tell you that we're really excited about this tool and being able to offer just such a wealth of information in this interactive format. And we really hope that you're going to be excited about it too. So one of the primary goals of this town hall is to ensure that you all walk away with more information, that you're able to use the tool really comfortably, that you are able to use that knowledge to hopefully tell other people and help them to use it as well. So I would just encourage everyone, really don't be shy about asking questions either in the chat or during our Q&A session at the end, just to ensure that you do know more about its functionality in case you have any questions. So at this point, I have shared my screen, but I did want to ask if there's anyone who cannot see my screen right now. You should be seeing the blue image of the county. All right, I think it seems like maybe we're good to go then. So just diving right in, we have, I'm going to go over the overall layout of the website itself. You'll see along the top here, we have various tabs that direct you to the different components of the site. And then every single one of these tabs will bring up a screen that has a panel along the left-hand side with additional information, except for the very last one. And if you are like me, you are probably drawn to the lovely graphics and images in the main panel and really want to focus your attention there. But I would encourage everyone to look on this side panel as well, because there's so much information. For instance, on this introductory tab, you will see a video from County Executive Pittman right here, introducing Plan2040 at home. And then as you scroll down, there's so much more information, lots of links to additional resources, Easter eggs all over the place. If you miss anything in this tutorial and you want to go back and look at a short and condensed version of it, we have a link to a video tutorial right here. as well as information about how long this open house will be available online for. And then there are additional buttons with more information, both on this side panel and in the main panel. For instance, you can see a rundown here of all of the community engagement that's happened around Plan 2040 thus far, and information on what we've heard and how we've tried to respond in Plan 2040. Which has really come to play into the next tab, which are the visions and themes, or the vision and themes. Mark went over this a bit, but you'll see here that there's additional background information on the side panel. And these are really the key aspirational statements about what the county should look like for the next 20 years, and have helped to guide the development of Plan 2040 itself. And our Citizens Advisory Committee, which is made up of 23 members, developed these vision and themes, which were based on a lot of what we heard in those community engagement sessions. So if you hover over this main panel and start to scroll down or use the scroll bar on the side, you'll see some of those things that we heard from the community, how people care about creating resilient and sustainable communities, especially in the face of climate change, care about new and improved infrastructure to support a variety of transportation choices, improve our water, sewer, and stormwater systems, and to provide top quality public facilities. We care about strategic economic growth and redevelopment, both that will facilitate business innovation and support our traditional industries. We really care about community character and recognizing and building on the unique assets that comprise the community's many diverse neighborhoods. And finally, we care about inclusive, equitable, and responsive government. And this is something that we really hope that we're demonstrating or continuing to demonstrate here today with this town hall as well. And this vision and themes, as I said, guided the development of Plan 2040, and that includes the various goals, policies, and strategies that really set the work program for the county for the next 20 years. And that's something we go into in the next tab, the goals survey. So Plan 2040's goals and policies are, they provide a framework for county decisions and priorities around development activity, work programs, and budgets. And we've organized them into the 4 broad categories that Mark referenced earlier in the presentation. Natural environment, which includes natural resources, greenways, agricultural areas. Healthy communities, which includes things like our public services, schools, libraries, parks. Healthy economy, which aims to attract, retain, and expand businesses. And then the built environment section, which includes information around land use, housing, transportation, cultural resources, and climate change. And in total, there are over 400 individual goals, policies, and implementing strategies. And if you're really wanting to dig into all of those, you can access the whole set right here in this hyperlink, or you can go into any one of these 4 corresponding buttons and see additional information on that section of the plan in the sidebar, along with more hyperlinks to additional resources. And also you'll get a general rundown on the topic or the challenges and opportunities within the sections and the topics covered as well. And then down at the very bottom, if you scroll all the way down, you're able to provide information about whether you think that you support each one of these high-level goals or not in the form of a Survey Monkey. And I will, just as a reminder, you need to scroll all the way down to the very bottom, and you can provide general comments if you'd like, and be sure to click next, because if you don't, we won't get it. So we do want to make sure that you all are submitting these to us so that we can have those comments. Now the next 3 tabs right here are a set of maps. They're all interactive. And they're really illustrating our plan for future land use. My map just loaded pretty quickly, but I'll tell you earlier in the day, it was taking quite a while. So just again, as a reminder, depending on how quickly your internet connection moves, these may load slower or faster. You can click this button right here to view the map. And this first map that we have is the Development Policy Areas map, which identifies geographic regions in the county that are appropriate for a particular range of future land uses and public facilities. And we used this map in particular to inform our land use recommendations, which I'll go into in the next couple of tabs. And there's this handy link right here where you can read all of the definitions of the development policy areas. And then also you can comment on the development policy areas in this link right here. But you can also move all around the map. I'm just clicking and dragging it right now, but you can also scroll in and out. If you have a mouse, you're able to do that with your mouse, or you can use the plus and minus buttons right here. Plus brings you closer, minus backs you out. And then there's this nifty home button here also, which will restore it to its original extent. And then over on the right-hand side, you see the legend, which is going to tell you what each of these various areas is. And if you click on them, it brings up a bit more information there as well. Now, the next map is in a button below the Development Policy Areas map, and it's our resource sensitive policy area. And this map also actually shows part of the development policy areas, but there's so much information here that we moved it over into another map to not confuse the matter. And our resource sensitive policy area focuses on areas of natural, cultural, or physical features of special concern or significance within the county. And portions of this map informed our land use change applications and staff recommended land use changes as well. And again, I would encourage you to read the information over on the left-hand side and also in this window right here before clicking view the map, which brings you into the map itself. And a lot of features of this map are pretty similar. You're able to zoom in and out in the same way, pan around, use the plus, minus, and home buttons. But then the list of layers that make up this map, all of these various different geographic areas that you're seeing, works a little bit differently. The map loads with the areas that we did consider in our land use, in the review of our land use change applications and staff recommended changes. But you're also able to turn on other layers as well, areas that are also represent sensitive features. For instance, I just clicked on our streams, or you can turn off the ones that load on the map. And then for any of these that have this little caret next to it, you can click into that and it'll show you exactly what all of the colors mean. And something that I really like is that you can change the opacity as well. So they all start out a bit transparent, but you can actually make them even more transparent, which is really handy when you come to this little down arrow right here and click into our base map gallery. So right now we have a kind of grayscale base map loading. There's not a lot of detail. If you want to see maybe the aerial imagery, you can click that on, and then you can zoom in pretty close and kind of see what's going on this map, which I think is pretty exciting. Oh, and one thing that I was forgetting, again, if you click on any of these things that are shown on the map, it'll pop up a little box that gives you some information about that feature and whether it was considered in our review of the land use change applications and staff recommended land use changes, or whether it's regulated or both. And you can see in this instance with our historic resources, they were both considered in our review and they're regulated at the time of development. Now, moving on, as I noted, that development policy areas map factored into our determinations made in recommending planned land use, which you can see on this really, really lovely map here. Just as a reminder, planned land use, I know we've already said this, so I'm sorry to say it again, but planned land use is not zoning. So land use is broader. It identifies general areas where different types of land use are most appropriate, and the planned land use actually guides the zoning, which is more specific and where each zone has very specific regulations associated with it. So planned land use comes first and kind of establishes a general plan, and then land use or zoning follows behind and acts on or implements that plan. So right now we are looking at our proposed planned land use map for Plan 2040 alongside the planned land use map from the 2009 GDP. So I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. And you can see that when you use this slider bar here, you're actually changing the map. So on the left is our Plan 2040 planned land use. On the right is that 2009 planned land use. And you can see that over here in the legend as well. And it says right here, right is 2009 and left is Plan 2040. And the closer you zoom in, the more you're able to see the changes as one color changes to another. And something that's really important over in this side panel is this, what's a pretty hidden briefing paper at this point. I do think that we've gotten some feedback that the color does not stand out very much here, and I do think that we will be making this a brighter color. But I did want to call attention to it because it's a 10-page paper that goes all into exactly how we ended up with this planned land use map. All right, and then moving on, we also provide the opportunity to actually comment on our draft planned land use map under the button that is aptly named Comment on Draft Planned Land Use Map. And we have 3 primary types of changes on the planned land use map from the 2009 GDP planned land use map. And I'm going to go through each of those one by one. So the first type of change is a consistency change where we identified that the 2009 GDP planned land use did not match either the existing development types and densities, density being the number of dwelling units per acre, the existing zoning, or the parcel boundaries. And we came through and cleaned that up. The second type of land use change that we made were actually applications from property owners or their agents. So earlier in this planning process, property owners were given the chance to apply for changes to their personal property, apply for changes to the land use. So maybe it was designated one thing and they said, hey, I would really like for it to be this other thing. And we opened those applications up for public comment for a period of time, and we received more than 1,000 comments on those land use change applications. We came back into the office, did research into each one, and ultimately combined the two in an evaluation that resulted in a staff recommendation. And the third type of change is our staff recommended changes, which were changes that we thought were appropriate, but were not considered those minor consistency changes, which I went over first. And I'm going to provide an example of each one of these types of land use changes that we recommended. And to go over those consistency changes first, I think it's actually easiest to start on the planned land use map. And we are going to come back down to the area that I zoomed in on earlier, actually. This is a consistency change that we made in Region 7. This is Heritage Harbor right here, I believe. And you can see on the right-hand side, about half of it in the 2009 GDP was designated as residential low medium density. You can see that over here. Whereas half of it was low density residential. And we looked at this and evaluated the actual existing density and determined whether we anticipated it would change in the next 20 years, ultimately thought that it would not. And the existing density is in fact low density residential when you look at this whole area and consider the open space and the developed areas together. So you can see that change again, sliding one direction to the other. And we designated that as a consistency change. To come back over to the comment on draft planned land use map, all of these many LUCAs, L-U-C-A, that you see here, those are actually our land use change applications. And I am going to take us to one in Region 8. It's actually LUCA 41 to represent the type of change that was requested by an applicant during this planning process down in Region 8. I'm zooming out just to give you a little bit better idea of where it's at. But you can see over in this panel over here, the requested land use was low density residential, although it was currently designated rural in the 2009 GDP. And ultimately, based on our evaluation, the public comments, the rural context, and especially the fact that it's located within our agricultural priority preservation area, which is part of our resource sensitive policy area, we recommended that it remain rural land use. And that's consistent with all of the recommendations we made within our priority preservation area that were already rural. Now, finally, I'm going to go over one of the staff recommended changes in Region 9. So again, here you can see the current land use is maritime, and there's no requested land use because this was a staff recommended change. And after staff review, we recommended that it be low density residential, which is the developed use of this property. Now, something that's really cool about this map is that you can toggle this little button right here off and on. And when it's off and there's no blue showing, you'll see each of these land use change applications and the staff recommended changes in numerical order. And something I should mention is that we have LUCAs 1 through 189, but we did have 7 applicants withdraw their applications part of the way through the process. So you may see some areas where, for instance, LUCA 134 right here is missing, but that's just because the application itself was withdrawn. But something that's really great about this is if you toggle this button on, it's only going to return the LUCAs and SRs that are in the part of the map that you're actually looking at. So you can see we're starting at LUCA 3 here. And if we scroll in, it's going to reduce the list even more. So if you decide that you wanted to comment on LUCA 41, you could come down here, click this little button right here, and go through a series of drop downs that would allow you to tell us whether you agree with it, if you disagree, what you think would be an appropriate land use, the reasons for your choice, an area to provide your name and email, and any additional comments. And I will let you know as soon as you click submit, it's going to populate down here. So just be forewarned. And there is also a link over here. If you have just general comments on the land use plan as a whole, you would click into this and that'll bring you to another SurveyMonkey survey. And our final tab is is a tab that goes over our next steps. So you really can see the roadmap for what comes ahead, what are the next process or the next parts of this process, and where do we go after this online open house closes on September 10th. And also, we just wanted to take the opportunity here to really thank you for your time and your investment in this process, and for taking the time to really go through and dive into our online open house, and to share our excitement about it. So thank you.
Thank you, Mark and Holly, for that great presentation. That now is going to bring us to the Q&A portion of our webinar. So again, if you have a question you would like to ask, click the raise hand function at the bottom of your screen. I'll call your name. You'll then be prompted to unmute yourself, and you'll have 1 minute to ask a question about the interactive website and how to use it. So does anyone have a question? I see Cross. Start with them.
First off, I want to compliment you on the entire website. It's extremely easy to use. It's well organized. It's easy to find the details that you need. The question I was interested in is, when the whole process is done, is the website going to go away, or are you going to continue to make it available so people can see the comments, the changes, and continue to use it as a resource in tracking development in the county? Thank you.
So I can take that question. So this website is intended to solicit input during this one moment of the process. So once we gather all the feedback, staff will be analyzing it, and we'll be then translating that or producing that into a full Plan 2040 document, which will, as Holly had put there on the last screen for thank you, that will be available for public comment in September. So really, once we get to that step, this website to some degree becomes a little obsolete because some changes will have been made. So at that point, what we would be working off of is that draft Plan 2040 document.
Okay, now we're going to move on to Jenkins. You should be free to speak now. ngjenkins@83@gmail.com. All right, I guess we'll come back to them. Matt Minahan.
Oh, okay, 2 points. First of all, this app sounds really wonderful and all the different things you can do. However, it's not accessible to people who don't have computers, and also people like me who have older equipment, because as I tried to use it, it kept crashing.
So these resources are available. The libraries are open at a little limited capacity. Is that correct? Yeah. So I would reach out to friends and family members.
Yeah, but in my library is not open at all except for curbside pickup.
They actually have, you can make appointments to.
With the current situation, I do not have a computer I can access. I'm just pointing out to you that this is probably true for other people too. And the libraries are not open either at all. There's only curbside pickup.
The libraries they open and then they close again, and their current status is that you can make if you call to make an appointment, they will let you in to use computers.
Okay, let's move on to Matt Minahan.
Let me just say though that it is absolutely true, and I think everybody's aware that to have something that is technology dependent like this, it doesn't include everybody. In the past, when the only way to comment was to go to a meeting, that didn't include everybody either, and we're trying to increase the ability for people to engage. And so I think if you want to comment, you can, I would call the Office of Planning and Zoning and see if they can work something out, whether it's an appointment at the library or something else. I know that for people who can't make the system work, people can email comments in as well. That was mentioned in the last town hall. I know the team is really trying to maximize the opportunities for people to comment, and there's no perfect system, but you're absolutely right. It is tough on some folks.
So thanks for taking my question. First of all, big props to the staff on this, Mark, Cindy, Christina, Holly. This is a great site. It's rich, it's dense, it's full of great stuff. And I'm deeply appreciative of the fact that you've got a peninsula policy development area identified and some characteristics for them. I'm looking forward to knowing more about what that means and what you guys have in mind for that. And maybe that'll be in the full draft when you publish it in late September. A very specific question. We have no way to control infill development, as best I can tell. And on our little Mayo Peninsula here, we have 600 infill lots that can be built regardless of the roads or schools. And I'm just wondering, is there anything in the GDP that can address this kind of challenge?
Yeah, Cindy, do you want to?
Yeah, so I would thought I'd answer that back to you, but yeah, so we've got several strategies dealing with adequate public facilities, trying to limit growth where we can limit growth, especially in the neighborhood preservation, peninsula and rural policy areas, and trying to focus growth more into our specific targeted areas. That doesn't mean all of the target areas will be dense development. It just means, we will create more community-oriented growth areas versus sprawl. We've already started, as county executive I think mentioned earlier, that we've already started reducing the number of modifications, especially where environmental consideration, for environmental considerations. So if you think there are other strategies that should be applied or where we shortfalls, then I would encourage you to use this platform and the open house tool to kind of voice your concerns.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think we're all aware of on the Mayo Peninsula, those 600 that were, they were told that when the sewer gets hooked up, they'll be able to move forward. So if you all at the neighbors of the Mayo Peninsula have a proposal for how to manage that, if you think it would move too fast, if you think that it's, I know it's controversial among your neighbors, but if I don't think that the zoning is likely to change that, because my understanding is that the way it's zoned, that they could build on those lots. But I'm sure you've commented on this before, and you'll keep commenting on it. But we're open to ideas for that, or at least I am. I can't speak for OPZ. Maybe you've already thought this one through, but I know it's a big deal right now.
Okay, up next we have Susan Cochran.
All right, hello. I think this is an amazing project they've got here. I was wondering, since you've recorded it, I was wondering if those of us who might have missed a second or two somehow, can we see this tutorial again, or can we pass the tutorial on to some of our people who haven't seen it? Did I say I was with the Edgewater Citizens Association? And I don't know, I've tried to get the word out to them, but anyway, what do you say?
Well, first of all, thank you, Susan, for trying to get the word out. But yes, we are recording these and we're posting them to YouTube, and we're going to share them with you as soon as they're posted.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And there's also in the first page, there's a tutorial that was pre-recorded it's not as good as this one because Holly and Mark are so amazing, or maybe Holly and Mark did it, I don't know. but there is one that you can click on when you first get there, and it'll walk you through it and give you the training too.
Okay, up next, Philip Allen. Philip, you should be able to speak now. Okay, Philip, we'll come back to you. John Van Camp.
Good evening, County Executive Pittman, Planning and Zoning staff and Vince. Thanks for getting the word out and making this available. Several things. I'm on the Bay Ridge Community Association Board of Directors. We're southwest the city of Annapolis. We're on the Annapolis Neck Peninsula. Forest Drive runs out of our community down through the city of Annapolis. And also, it's good to keep in mind that the city of Annapolis is pursuing their own comprehensive plan for the next 20 years at the same time that we in the county are doing it. A couple of questions here. As you all took us through the introduction, after the topic of implementation, there was a topic of performance measures. Could you please show us where to find that? I've been through this. I've been through your presentation several times. It's fantastic. It's detailed. There's a lot there, and we'll keep going back through it in our community to formulate our responses and get our people ready to do their part here. And also, once all this is in, and you all on the staff have put your draft together, how will you secure public comment? What's your plan to do that? So those are the two questions, if you can help us out with that. Thank you. Thank you again for all the great work and everything that's going on here. It's fantastic.
Sure. So to your first question there is about performance measures. The purpose of this online tool at this moment is to get feedback on the goals, as well as some of the land use items, such as the development policy area map and the planned land use map.
Right.
The performance measures will be included in the draft Plan 2040 document, which will be released in September.
Okay.
Okay. And then the second part of your question was, how will we receive public comments? So we'll put that out. We'll post that, make it available to folks, and it'll be, I think, through email or through comment form, you'll be able to provide comments.
You think it'll be something, probably not as quite as detailed, but somewhat similar to an online, your document be online and interface with us that way, something like that?
Cindy, what are?
You're
Oh,
muted.
you're on mute.
Yeah, there we go.
Sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Okay. Once you have everything together and you want public comment, will you have the document online so we can see what you all put together, how it has or hasn't changed, so that we can then interface with you?
I'm not sure I understand your question, but we will have the full draft of the Plan 2040 available online.
Okay, super. Thank you. That was it.
And hopefully they'll do something nifty like this with SurveyMonkey so that so that you can comment on aspects of it. I don't know if that's been figured out yet, but no, knowing these guys, it'll probably
Process
be,
working on.
Yeah. Good.
All right, Philip Allen, you want to give it a try again?
It's not working.
No, still not working.
Might have a microphone problem, or
He did write it. I'm going to read it out loud.
okay.
When does this site close for comments? We want to let our homeowners association know. Are the arts, music, and theater included in the health communities areas?
Holly, do you want to chime in?
Well, I can answer that first part, right? It ends September 8th.
Yeah, so September 10th is when the site will close. Yeah, we'll close for comments. Please do let your homeowners associations know. And in regards to arts, music, and theater, I think we address it a little more, probably like, I guess, generally in the sense of this is a land use plan. So we may address that as far as making sure that there are facilities or land available for those types of activities. We do have a background report, and again, in healthy communities, we do address where there might be deficiencies in those arenas and how we might address them.
Thank you, Mark. Bill Keeks.
Here we are.
All right.
Okay, September 10th again. What's driving that particular date? Hello?
Yep. So we had opened it earlier this month, and we wanted to let it run for, I think it was 6 weeks.
Okay.
And the date has been driven by the end date that we want to get this thing to the council by the end of the year. It's been delayed a number of times already, and so it's trying to just move it along.
Okay. After that date, there probably will be some version of this site still up, perhaps not open to comments, I guess. When the draft plan and ultimately the final plan are set, how is that going to be presented? Won't it end up looking something like what we already have in terms of data presentation as what we already have on the site? Or will it be a book?
Right, you're asking how how the actual Plan 2040 will be produced?
Yes.
Yes, so it'll be a document. It'll be both available digital and print. And if you're familiar, if you go to aacounty.org /plan 2040, we do have a link to the 2009 plan. It'll look similar to that, but I think quite much more illustrative and have a lot more detail in it. So I'll give you the 2009 plan as a reference, but I would say expect more. Our team is doing a great job of producing the document.
Okay, I guess it would be advantageous for a lot of people to see something in the format that's already online. Just putting in a vote for that, I think it'd be much more useful.
I would just add, try to separate. Oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Well, just separate out a lot of the background data into one volume, and what we're calling an action plan will be a separate volume, which will have the goals, policies, strategies, and some of the more, probably more interesting data in it. And it's just a separate piece, a much shorter document that I imagine if people had paper copies of, they would be dog-eared, because that'll be the volume that gets used. It won't be the one that sits on the shelf.
Yeah, and I think part of what you might be getting at is, and I think the earlier question about, is this thing going to disappear? What a shame that would be, because it's so cool. And is that we're trying to get all of the land use work put onto interactive maps. So from the very beginning, whether it's a development application or anything else, so that it's all in interactive maps. And we're getting there. There's a huge project, the Land Use Navigator, that's underway. That is moving slower than we would like because the contractors have moved slow. But what happened here, I think, was this team just got together and produced something for this. And my hope is that this team will get together and make the general development plan something that's alive, that has maps that you can open and access more easily. Because it has been difficult in the past dealing with paper paper maps and flipping through things, and even PDFs that don't have links, live links. I can't make promises, and they probably can't either yet about what it's going to actually, how interactive it's going to be. But I'm hoping as well that this is, this is just the beginning of this quality of, accessible land use planning for people.
Absolutely. So
Y'all
now
set the bar so high. Now everybody's going to ask for for good stuff going forward.
We're ready.
Good.
Awesome. Jerry Pesterfield.
Can you hear me?
Now we can. Yep.
All right. I pushed all the right buttons. I'll try not to push any more. First of all, I've been involved with this for over 3 years now, and I want to compliment planning and zoning and the CAC, Elizabeth and the team, for what the result is that we're all getting to see now. It certainly wasn't easy, and everybody certainly isn't going to be happy, but it wasn't from lack of openness and input. So I just want to make sure everybody understands the effort, and everybody deserves compliment on this. To that end, I'd like to have you share the latest schedule, because as we all know, my schedule for this, I keep changing it. What is the current timeline for each of the sections going forward, and where community people can probably give input again, clear up to the conclusion? So it'd be good for everybody to kind of know what the broad calendar looks like, besides this online input process.
Sure. So the like we said, is the proposed draft Plan 2040 document that'll be available to the public review in late September. We'll keep that open for 30 days. And again, the public will have an opportunity to comment on that. Then the document, after some changes based on that public comment, will be going to the Planning Advisory Board in November. And
That's you, Jerry.
Yep, Jerry.
Jerry Pesterfield is the chair. Yep.
Right, exactly.
You squealed on me now, thanks.
Yeah.
So folks can provide testimony at your meetings there. And then shortly after that, the recommended draft Plan 2040, that'll be introduced to the County Council in December, with public hearings again in January. So 3 more opportunities for the public to comment.
That's good for them to know. That's great. Thanks. Thank you all.
Before we move on, I just wanted to let everyone know that if you did ask a question in our Q&A box, Cindy and Christina have been answering them. Just click on the Q&A box and click on answers, and you should see everything there. Next up, we have Angela Rodriguez.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for this presentation. I really enjoyed it. It was a wonderful day to kind of end my crazy day, to sit back and watch and see what's going to be happening in our communities. My question, and I hope no one takes offense to how I ask it, so I'm going to put that out there first, but how can you make me feel confident that areas such as where I live, which is Brooklyn Park, are going to get the same piece of pie that an area like Annapolis or Pasadena would get? How are you dividing up your resources to ensure that communities like us aren't overlooked? Because I don't know, I hate to say it like this, but we probably need a lot of slices of that pie to help us, come back to a point where we can really be proud of our community again. So I just wanted to find out how you can help me with that. Help me feel confident that you're really going to look out for our best interests. And thank you again.
I can try that one.
Okay.
love your cat, Angela. I guess part of the question is what flavor pie, what people want in that pie. And so some people see the slice of the pie is they want certain kinds of development. Other people want no development. Some people want for their community resources to do upgrade homes, home rehabs, which I know in Brooklyn Park has been a priority. Some people want more parks, trails, sidewalks, whatever it is. And so the regional plans that are going to be coming after the general development plan are, I think, one opportunity to really get specific about what the community needs. But we're not putting a hold on all of the work in every community waiting for a plan, because there's ongoing work. So in Brooklyn Park, I know there's the Communities of Hope that the Partnership for Children, Youth, and Families has been doing. We actually had a cabinet meeting in Brooklyn Park where we came in and we did some driving tours where we brought all the departments of county government together and said, look, this is a community that it's an older community that doesn't have as many resources as some other communities in the county. And we have to keep it from crumbling. We have to provide infrastructure. We have to provide some social services. And so Brooklyn Park is one unique community that has unique needs. And that's why we have to do these region plans separate, because it's not the same needs as Severna Park or any other part of the county. Everyone is different. And so, I mean, that's just part of government and advocating and being organized and pushing for the things in your community that you feel like you need. And, our job is to listen. So the planning process is part of that. It's one of the most democratic things we do, I think, which is why people love the small area planning so much. And I think it's why they'll love the regional planning so much. But we're not going to wait for the regional plans to get started in doing stuff in Brooklyn Park or any other neighborhood. Layla Jones is the community engagement and constituent service rep for that area. Look her up, harass her, tell her what you need. That's the job.
And when are we going to get our pool?
Right.
We have to go one more summer without a pool.
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to do a whole community center up there. There's all kinds of efforts underway. Yeah. So.
No, thank you very much. I'm kidding, of course, but
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right, we have 2 hands raised. We're going to go to James Lyons.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Hey, Jim.
All right, good. It's good to see all of you. And Christina, I haven't seen you in a long time. I want to thank you guys for all the hard work. And Cindy, this seems like it's been an endurance test for you. So thank you very much for all the time you put in, and Mark and Holly as well. I guess the question I have is related to how the goals and strategies, the elements that are in a different part of the plan, how they are going to be achieved. And I'm thinking in particular of water quality goals, goals for protecting open space, even issues associated with water access. How do those get achieved through the land use planning process? Because certainly land use change is going to impact those things. Where we developed, where we don't, the critical area is a great example, will have a big impact on whether or not we're going to achieve our water quality goals or meet our TMDL commitments. And I think the plan talks about this in terms of goals and objectives, but where is the translation, or will there be a translation of how land use change and how the county's plan for development will help us achieve those outcomes, so that the public can understand the connection between those longstanding goals and the land use changes that we can anticipate over the next 20 years?
I think Christina should take that first, and then maybe I'll add
I
in.
wanted to take it, so I'm glad the county exec called on me. Thanks for asking that question, Jim. I saw that you also asked that in the question and answer, and I tried to answer it.
And the answer was pretty good, Christina. I'm not questioning that, but I think a little clarification would help.
I think, so the way I view the GDP is a gigantic to-do list, right? And where the rubber meets the road is whether or not we really get to work on the to-do list that is included in the GDP after it's adopted, or whether we throw it up on a shelf. Now, there's a lot of work that has to come out of this GDP. We know, and most of it is regulatory, because this is a planning document. The GDP is not regulatory in nature. But how do we do things that would achieve water quality goals? It's how land use can happen. And that comes down to regulation, whether it's stronger stormwater management regulations, stronger sediment erosion control regulations, larger buffers for sensitive resources, better inventories of sensitive resources and habitats, and putting habitat protection plans in for sensitive areas, not issuing modifications for environmentally sensitive areas. There are a whole host of things. A lot of that ends up, it has to end up in Articles 17 and 18, which is our development article and our zoning article. There are also other articles in the county code that affect environmental protection, where we have regulations for sediment erosion control, stormwater, et cetera. I mentioned those, and critical areas. One of the things that has to follow after this GDP that nobody has really been talking about is that we need to comprehensively update our critical area program and ordinance. We're currently in the process of doing a comprehensive update to our critical area mapping, but the program and ordinance typically gets updated on a 6-year time frame. And I personally have gone through and looked at a lot of language that's in our code right now for critical areas. And I think there are a lot of places we could do a better job, and that's going to translate into better water quality. So we have to commit, and anytime we change regulations, that comes down to the county council. But there's always opportunity for the public to be involved and to weigh in. So it is very important that you stay engaged in this process, because the general development plan is only the very first piece. There still will be years of work following this effort to bring these things to fruition.
Stuart, did you want to say something before I offer a slight response?
Yeah, well, yeah, and it's important that we not neglect anything in the general development plan that should be there, because it does become a tool that we use, and that we use it when we're making our arguments to try to get the legislative changes. There's going to be a lot of changes to the code, and that's already started, but that's going to be ongoing as we go through this process. And I'm glad I'm not on the county council. I know Lisa and Jessica are here. It's going to be a lot of work to try to stay on top of that and do that right. But a lot of that's going to be driven by the GDP. You know, we'll always refer back to the priorities that this community established in our GDP, and we'll fight to have it implemented. I know that people want the GDP to have teeth, the GDP to be there are real questions about whether you can violate the GDP and to what degree you can, and that's going to be debated back and forth. But at the end of the day, the county council has the authority to go against what the GDP says if they choose to in their legislation. So it's an organizing tool for people to get engaged, for people to get educated, for the staff to be involved to establish our plan and our priority. But then we have to keep fighting to be able to actually implement it.
So if I could just say one thing, I don't disagree with Christina's characterization. I might refer to the GDP as a blueprint more than kind of a storybook or a description of what we want to achieve. I would suggest, though, that regulation is one tool, but land use and changes in land use decisions made in the GDP are a critical part of, for example, addressing water quality concerns. That's why we have critical areas. That's why those were designated 40 years ago now, and strict limits on development were placed in those areas because, undeveloped land is the best filter for reducing stormwater runoff and impacts. So I think you need to have both. And I hope at some point in the process, there'll be an opportunity to have that conversation, because I don't think it simply comes down to land use. And as you know, Stuart, issues like water access depend critically on decisions we make with regard to land use. And so we do have to look at land use to address those issues, water quality issues, access issues, I think as a part of an overall strategy. But I don't disagree that regulation is important, but I would hope you not discount land use decisions and the authority that the county has to purchase land through conservation easements and to limit development, such that the regulations can be effective in addressing water quality or related concerns. So anyway, I do want to say it's a tremendous, the website's great. I think you guys have done a tremendous job, and we're looking forward. Jessica, we're looking forward to engaging in this process, because it's going to be critical to our peninsula and others like it. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. And Ms. Jenkins, you're up next. I know she had a little trouble last time.
Yeah, sorry. I did type out my question. I'm just curious about the percentage of different land use. For example, how much of a county land is conservation, how much is open space, and is there a way to find that out?
It's a good question. Does anybody know the percentages? I'm sure somebody does, but off the
We
top.
do. Yeah, Cindy, we prepared something like that, right? And I just don't have it offhand here.
Yes. Is that in the video that we're getting ready to add that goes over the land use plan?
I don't remember.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Miss Jenkins is identified by her Gmail address, so we can email her.
Yeah.
Vincent, if we can get the list
Yeah,
after
absolutely.
the meeting.
So we'll follow up with you, Ms. Jenkins. And we do have
That would
one.
be great.
We have one more hand raised. Anthony Brent.
Hello, Office of Planning and Zoning. Thank you very much for all the work you've put into this. This has really been a great opportunity. I've been serving on the CAC for the last almost 2 years. I was nominated by Mr. Pittman for a second time after being nominated by the last county executive also. So this has been a long process. Just to reiterate again, the website and the information that's available is invaluable, and it's presented in such an easy and clear way to travel through and be able to give input. And it's been enjoyable to actually be able to get our voices heard in this process. So again, I thank the Office of Planning and Zoning for Cindy and Christina, Mark, and Holly, and then it's been great. Just to follow up a little on with Mr. Pittman on what Jim was saying, there is that concern due to looking back at our historical documentation, is that translation from policy into law, from the will of what the people are putting forward into the laws, and then later on the enforcement of those laws. As we on the CAC have been seeing, that has been the problem for the last, as Jim said, 30 to 40 years. I'm also working on the traffic APF, and we're seeing the same thing in that venue. So working on that has also been another eye-opening experience. So yeah, making sure that the people's wishes and desires in that translation from policy into law is a huge concern that I've been hearing from the people I've been interfacing with over these things. So again, that's the big concern. And again, thank you to Office of Planning and Zoning. That's all I have to say.
Elizabeth Rosberg just noted that if you go to the document, the plan land use map briefing document, the one that Holly said wasn't in a bright enough color, it's got on page 5, it's got for each of the land use designations, the percentage of the county that is in that land use designation. So interesting.
All right, well, that's the last question for the night. Before I turn it over to County Executive Pittman, you all should have a link to a survey in your inbox. So please check your email and fill it out. Let us know what you thought about this presentation. Back over to you, County Executive.
Well, I just want to thank everybody for participating and thank the staff for the great work. Every one of you, now that you've done this, you can take it and teach other people how to do it. So you can take it to community meetings, and the more people, the better. And it's almost 8 o'clock, and now we can all go have our favorite ice cream or go get some, because I really am in the mood for ice cream now. Ice cream for dinner for all. Thanks, everybody.